Claire Donovan had always been known for being a restless sleeper. Since college, her friends joked about how she would toss and turn through the night, kick the blankets off, and mumble in her dreams. When she moved in with her roommate Hannah Foster after graduation, Hannah thought it was just one of those quirks she would learn to ignore. It was harmless, or at least, that's what she thought in the beginning. The first time it happened, Hannah was asleep in her room when she was startled awake by the sound of footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving across the wooden floor. For a moment she froze in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding in her chest. She was sure someone had broken into the apartment. The city wasn't exactly the safest place, and her imagination immediately filled with the image of a masked intruder searching for valuables. She slipped out of bed, quietly tiptoeing toward her door, holding her phone tight in her hand, ready to dial 911. But when she peered into the dimly lit living room, she felt a mix of relief and confusion. It wasn't an intruder. It was Claire. She was standing by the kitchen sink, her posture stiff, her head tilted slightly down. Her eyes were half open but glassy, unfocused, like she wasn't truly there. Hannah exhaled a shaky laugh, realizing what it was. Claire was sleepwalking. But then she heard it. Claire's lips moved, whispering in a steady, almost rehearsed rhythm. At first, Hannah thought it was gibberish, the random nonsense people sometimes muttered when they weren't awake. But then the words became clear. "I buried it by the oak tree. No one will ever find it." The relief drained from Hannah's body in an instant. Her blood ran cold, and her skin prickled with goosebumps. Those weren't the words of a dreamer. Those were words of someone confessing something dark, something secret. She stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. Claire continued muttering to herself for a moment longer before turning slowly and shuffling back toward her bedroom. Hannah slipped quickly into her own room, diving under the blankets like a frightened child. By morning, she tried to laugh it off. She convinced herself she had misheard or that Claire's mind had pulled some random line from a movie. But her unease lingered. Over breakfast, Hannah teased her lightly about sleepwalking, trying to gauge her reaction. Claire seemed embarrassed, blushing as she admitted she'd been told about it before, but never realized how bad it could be. When Hannah, in a half-joking tone, mentioned something about burying something near an oak tree, Claire's reaction stopped her cold. Claire's face paled instantly, her hand freezing midair with the spoon still in it. For just a fraction of a second, her eyes flickered with something Hannah had never seen in her before: fear. Then Claire laughed, loud and forced, and changed the subject so quickly it felt unnatural. That was the moment Hannah knew it wasn't just a dream. For the next few nights, Hannah set her phone to record audio while she slept. She told herself it was ridiculous, that she'd find nothing but silence or the occasional mumble. But when she listened to the recordings the following morning, her stomach twisted into knots. Claire's voice was captured clearly on the second night. It wasn't nonsense. It wasn't fragmented. She was whispering complete sentences, her tone low and chillingly calm. "I had to do it. He wouldn't stop. I had no choice. The shovel, the soil, it's hidden deep. They'll never know." Hannah sat frozen on her bed, listening again and again, unable to process what she was hearing. The way Claire's voice carried on those recordings, it didn't sound like dreaming. It sounded like a confession. The third night was even worse. Claire spoke names Hannah didn't recognize. Names of men. Places that meant nothing to her, but sounded real. "Daniel screamed." Claire whispered on the recording. "He begged. I told him it was too late. I buried him near the oak. He won't hurt anyone again." Hannah dropped her phone, tears burning her eyes. It was too specific, too vivid to be meaningless. She couldn't convince herself this was random. The next day, she tried to confront Claire gently. She asked about regrets, about whether she'd ever done something terrible she wished she could undo. Claire laughed it off at first, but her laughter sounded hollow. She wouldn't meet Hannah's eyes. Her hands trembled as she stirred sugar into her coffee. Hannah felt a growing sense of dread building in her chest, but she didn't dare press further. Still, she couldn't leave it alone. The words about the oak tree haunted her. There was an old park 2 miles from their apartment, one she and Claire had jogged through a few times. In the center of it stood a massive, ancient oak tree. One Saturday morning, Unable to resist the pull any longer, Hannah went there. The ground near the tree looked disturbed. Not fresh, but uneven. But though it had been dug up and refilled months earlier. She crouched low, touching the soil with her fingertips. It was loose, unnatural compared to the rest of the ground. Her stomach churned, her throat tightening until she could barely swallow. She wanted to call the police then and there. But what would she say? That her roommate confessed to murder in her sleep? They'd think she was insane. That night, Hannah made a decision. She propped her phone on her dresser, pressed record, and whispered into the microphone before bed. If anything happens to me, it's Claire. Check the oak tree in Eastwood Park. Her heart wouldn't stop racing. The apartment felt too quiet, every creak of the floorboards making her jump. Eventually, exhaustion pulled her into a light, uneasy sleep. At exactly 2:47 a.m., she heard movement. Hannah forced herself to stay still, her eyes closed, her breathing steady as if she were asleep. The floorboards creaked softly as Claire shuffled closer, her bare feet dragging lightly across the wood. Hannah's pulse thundered in her ears. Claire stopped by the window. Hannah listened as her voice cut through the silence, low and chilling. The rain will come soon. The ground won't hold. I'll have to move it before anyone notices. Hannah's entire body trembled beneath the blankets. She tried to stay calm, but panic threatened to overwhelm her. She thought of the uneven soil, of the names whispered into the recorder, of the pale look on Claire's face that morning. She couldn't take it anymore. She sat up, her voice shaking as she whispered, "Claire, what are you talking about?" Claire turned slowly, her eyes half closed, but her expression sharper than any sleepwalker's should have been. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then her lips curved into the faintest smile. "You know, don't you?" she whispered. Hannah's blood froze. Her heart slammed against her ribcage. Claire was awake. She wasn't sleepwalking. In an instant, Claire was standing by the bed, leaning close. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, far too alert. "I talk too much in my sleep," she said softly. Before Hannah could scream, Claire's hand clamped tightly over her mouth. Her muffled cries filled the room as her phone on the dresser continued to record every sound. The next morning, the bed was empty. Hannah was gone, and Claire sat alone at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee. She picked up Hannah's phone, scrolling to the final recording. She pressed play, listening to Hannah's terrified breathing, her desperate muffled cries. Claire's smile widened as her own voice came through at the end, whispering words meant to echo forever. "No one will ever find you." The phone stopped recording. Silence filled the apartment, and Claire went on with her day.